Good evening. We're going to call the meeting for Akron City Council to order. At this time, our clerk will read the roll.
Boys.
Present.
Connor. Davis.
Here.
DeShazier.
Present.
Fusco.
Aye.
Garrett.
Present.
Hannah.
Present.
Hardy. Kamer. Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Omobian.
Aye.
And Somerville.
Aye.
All members are present except for Councilman Hardy and Councilman Kamer.
For those who voluntarily wish to do so, would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? We're actually going to have a moment of silence. We had scheduled for our prayer tonight Pastor Gregory Harrison. Pastor Gregory Harrison's son passed away, and his funeral was today. And so he was 37 years old and fought a courageous battle with sickle cell anemia. So just asking that we keep him in his prayers, in our prayers. His son's name was also Gregory Quentin Harrison. So we're just going to have a moment of silence just so that we can reflect on his life and keep the family in our prayers. Thank you. Councilwoman Omobian, do you want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes. I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The minutes from our previously held meeting have been provided. Are there any additions or corrections?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. At this time, we will now move to our public comment period. I am going to ask if Mr. Harrington Hargrove would please approach the podium. You are our first and only, Mr. Hargrove, so we're going to have you to be swear you in first, and then you can proceed with your comments, okay?
Could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, I do. I do. Thank you.
First of all, Council, I want to say to
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm going to turn on your microphone first. Or are you able to?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay. I want to say congratulations to our new council people. We need a good change in our community, our city down here at council. And I just want to say congratulations and hope you fit in well. And I'm going to just give a little bit of something, what I've been trying to do in my community. I'm going to, first of all, it's going to be called Ward 3 Development Corporation. And we're going to have a barbershop, 6-chair barbershop. We're going to have hair braiding, 3 women braiding, and then I'm going to have a shoe shine parlor, and I'm going to have 2 men starting off, but my goal is to have 3. And I have a plan to work with the law firms downtown in having a pickup and delivery. And I also, in my shop, I'm going to have retail. I'm going to sell socks, ties, bow ties. I'm going to sell artwork from local artists. And I want to sell women African hair pieces, the scarves and stuff like that. That's what it's going to be. And my thing is about the Elevate Akron study. And the Elevate Akron study said we have been excluded, the black community in this city. And every one of you are aware that we haven't gotten our just due in the black communities. And in Ward 3, with the inner belt, it was stated that our community was destroyed. And that's been maybe 25 years ago, 30 years ago, with the inner belt. And all through that Ward 3, money has been allocated, but not enough for the black community, where we can have our business and have our community grow. And the cities, for some reason, you won't include us. And if you believe the Elevate Akron study, I don't know if you newly council people looked at the Elevate Akron study. And it's a disgrace what the Elevate Akron study says, but the council won't do anything about it. And the policies down here has been racist. I'm not calling you racist, but your policies are. And if you don't include the black community, what are you going to do? To elevate Akron? We need the city to rethink how you've been spending this money and include us. So I'm going to go because the buzzer's coming.
Thank you, Mr. Hargrove, for sharing. Thank you. That concludes our public comment period for this evening. Before we move into the rest of our regular scheduled agenda, Mayor has a presentation that he's going to share with council regarding the city's 100-day plan.
Good evening, Madam President. Good evening, council. Thank you for the time this evening. It's an honor to be with you here today. We are 57 days into the new administration, and the first 100 days is kind of a traditional way of marking the beginning of the administration and of setting the tone for the entire term to follow. And so, especially during the extended transition process we put together this 100-day plan in consultation with our transition staff, our transition team, the new administration, many of you, and members of the community. And so I wanted to take just a few minutes, really a few brief moments, to share some of that with you here today. We shared it online with the community late last week. But as we were putting together the 100-day plan, we started with the 4 categories that we really focused on during the campaign around safety, education, economic development, and then the 4th around health, housing, and the environment. So around safety, there's a number of different priorities, but some of the most notable are undertaking planning for the future of the police station. We'll have a final decision as to that new location by June 2024. Expanding the violence intervention that we're doing, both partnering with law enforcement, especially at the federal level, but also looking at the local level and community-based violence intervention. We're really glad our new public safety strategist, Tony Ingram, who spent many years with our Akron Probation Department, started with us today. So you'll be hearing more from him in the weeks and months ahead and the rest of our team. When it comes to economic development, one of the big things is selecting the contractor for the Inner Belt project. We are taking the next step from the report that the city did to take the $1 million grant we received from the federal government and really start looking at what are the usage that we're going to have of the Inner Belt. And then also facilitating the launch of our Downtown Community Development Corporation. Many of you have seen when it comes to downtown, cities all around the world are struggling. But oftentimes, we at City Economic Development have to go parcel by parcel in figuring out how to improve downtown. Like we have in our neighborhoods, as we well know, it would be really positive to have a community development corporation that, especially the corporate community that really has equity downtown, can seize and really help support so that someone's waking up every day thinking about downtown real estate and the future of some of these buildings. We're really excited about that. I know Susie has a lot of opinions about that. When it comes to health, housing, and the environment, we have a lot of priorities. One of them is the Right to Counsel pilot program that we have talked about with council, and we're going to be working with United Way and with other partners in helping further that work and get that up and running. We're also going to be reviewing and revising our residential tax abatement program, and also looking at reviewing and resetting our approach to home repair. So you'll hear more about that in the coming weeks. And then finally, when it comes to education, there are a number of priorities. One of them you may have heard a lot about is supporting community-based partnership with all of the stakeholders to really work around universal pre-K in our community. So that'll be working with Akron Public Schools, but also working with private providers, with Head Start and others. Really glad this is an area where Dr. Joan Williams has a focus, and so we've been glad to include her in one of the initial conversations, and we'll be including her and others with interest. I know Councilwoman Jan Davis has a lot of interest in this area as well, and so we're excited to share more about this soon, but also about access to our CLCs and working with Akron Public Schools on the future of North High School and other buildings. Those are a few of the things on kind of the policy side. One of the other things is building the team. Right? I've been very clear about this is not about all the things that I can do by myself. We have a team of 2,000 people down here at City Hall, and we're really glad about the cabinet and the strategy team and other appointed staff we've been able to put together. But we're going to be building out our Office of Integrated Development, which is now jointly led by Planning and Economic Development. We're going to be figuring out how some of our other city departments work and building out our new sustainability office, our new DEI office under Esther Thomas. So we're really excited about that. Another focus is modernizing city operations. So that includes our new 311 app, which in fairness, to give credit, the previous administration really did a lot of the legwork in getting that ready, and now we're trying to spread the word. We're really excited about our snowplow app. Hopefully that's something that saves all of you a lot of headache and time. Now when we have snow and ice operations, you can direct people to that site and they can see in real time the work that's being done. And also see if there's a problem. Now we really can see it on the screen. You can see if a road's been cleared or salted or not. But there are more things that we'll be sharing. And then the final thing is around community engagement and communication. And so we're trying to be very active in sharing information both at many of your ward meetings, but also through our online weekly newsletter, through social media, and through other forms of reaching out to folks. So we're really excited about ways that we not only talk, but listen as well. Our police chief search and the survey we're doing are a part of that. The final thing I want to just kind of state is that some of these things are one and done things. We can launch a snowplow app. Some of these things will last 4 years and beyond. And so some of those bigger things that I mentioned at the top around safety and education really are those longer term things that will never truly be done. One of those things is around retention and attraction of safety forces. I was really glad to spend some time today down at our APD Training Academy. It's the first day of the new academy. Got 48 new recruits. And it was really a wonderful sight to see. A big new class of folks, and we're excited to get them trained up and ready to hit the streets and join the rest of our department. And there's a lot of work to be done on the fire side as well, so we're excited about that. The last thing I just want to say is that we released this online tracker. Anyone can go to akronohio.gov/100-day tracker, and they can see this. And so if Sarah would, our wonderful clerk could scroll down, you'll see a yellow mark next to the ones that are in progress. You'll see a green mark next to the ones that are done. And you'll see a blue mark next to the ones that are starting soon. Almost all of them are right now in progress. About 6 of them, I think, are complete. We're going to be updating this weekly. And so if you go to the very bottom, there's a timestamp that shows the last time that it was updated. But we're really excited to do this because it's one thing to talk about all the things you're going to do. It's another thing to show your work and be accountable to the public. So this is my way of showing my accountability. We'll get it done or we won't, but we'll show where we are. And if there are things that are taking longer, we'll explain why. But we're really excited about this. And this is going to be a living document. This isn't just going to end after the 100 days. We're looking at how we'll extend this into the rest of the administration. So I want to just take a moment and share this with all of you. I hope you take a chance to go on the website and look at detail. I think we have 73 different priorities there on the website. Many of them are things that council is deeply, deeply involved in, right? We all went through the capital budget process. We're all about to go through the operating budget process, but we can't make progress on safety forces recruitment or on many other things without the partnership of this council. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to doing all of this work alongside all of you. And the priorities aren't here. If your priority isn't on here, it doesn't mean it can't be a priority for city government. It just means that it isn't something that is necessarily going to be the primary focus of our 100 days. So I'm really excited about this. I think that it's part of something that's been living in my head for a long time, and it's kind of exciting and cool to see it out there on paper and in the public. And it's also my own way of holding myself accountable, right? It's out there, like it or not, I got to get it done. So I'm really excited about that. Happy to take any questions or feedback or comments, but really just wanted to take a few moments and really appreciate the time, Madam President.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions? Councilman Lombardo?
Again, Mayor, City of Akron / 100-day tracker.
100-day plan, I think. But we'll make sure to get, we'll have Stephanie Marsh send out an email tomorrow with the URL and the information, but it's there on our akronohio.gov website. It's also on our social media. So yeah, I think it's akronohio.gov / 100-day plan, I think.
Plan. Okay.
Yep. It's 100-day tracker, I'm sorry. That's the one, see, we're holding ourselves accountable. 100-day tracker.
Okay, great. Any other comments from any council members at this time? Okay. Well, Mayor Malik, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For the presentation. Job well done. Thank you so much. We're going to continue with the rest of our agenda. Before you, you do have the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
The consent agenda passes 11-0.
We'll now move to old business, planning and economic development. Councilman Fusco.
The request of the committee is for time on 1 through and including 13, and to file item number 14,
Okay.
and time on the balance. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Time will be granted. Public safety, Councilman McKittrick.
We have a new piece that the clerk's, that's an amended piece that the clerk's going to read in.
Yes, this is a substitute offered as amendment offered by McKittrick. Ordinance approving certain rules proposed by City of Akron Citizens Police Oversight Board and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick.
The committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Just looking for passage so the board can get things going and get people in place. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other comments at this time? If not, the rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This ordinance passes 11-0.
Housing and neighborhood assistance, Councilman Fusco.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to make a motion that we suspend the council rule requiring amendments be in writing.
So we do have a motion on the floor that's going to require a second. Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Councilman Fusco.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to pull the committee for a favorable report with suspension of the rules. McKittrick?
Aye.
Sharon Connor? Aye. Eric Garrett? Aye. Samuel DeSazier?
Aye.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion that we, from the legislation that we currently have, that we strike the name Alyssa Figueroa from the title clause, and that we eliminate Section 1. And then under Section 6, the council hereby authorizes, and then just cross out the name Alyssa Figueroa.
Yes, and before, Mayor, I bring you up, I just want to just say, again, it is our knowledge, and we do know that the Housing Appeals Board does a great work and service in the community, and they have not been able to meet because they do not have enough board members to meet a quorum. And so there are some issues, some possible concerns with one of the appointments that we will talk about and address, but we want to sit the board, we want to make sure that the board has enough members so that they can continue to do the city's business. And so that is why we are moving in this direction. But I do want to give Mayor Malik an opportunity.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to kind of clarify for folks what's going on. As part of the process of making board appointments, the Housing Department recommended 2 people to be put forward to council to fill. We have a number of vacancies on the Housing Appeals Board. We have, I think 7 vacancies on the Housing Appeals Board. And so we put forward those 2 names. And Mr. Fusco had an issue with Ms. Figueroa, and we asked that those concerns be shared with the administration. There were, I believe, 5 links to YouTube clips of which Ms. Figueroa spoke to council that were shared earlier today. I have only been able to watch one of them so far, but the first one was a comment about abortion after the Dobbs case that I didn't see any concern with, and I can't understand any concern that I think I've heard members of council say identical things. And so I guess I would ask that if this is being amended for the record to exclude someone who our housing department, again, this was not my suggestion, it was from our neighborhood assistance department, recommended be involved with our housing appeals board, that those reasons be stated on the floor, because nothing has been shared on the record here with council. And I think that everyone deserves to be treated fairly in this process.
Thank you, Mayor. And again, I just want to make it very clear for the record, again, this is not about this particular individual, and we want to look to have some more conversations regarding those video clips and emails and other things of that nature. Right now, this is all about council moving forward to make sure that there are enough members where there is a quorum so that this body can address the city business. And that's all we're trying to do at this moment with this amendment.
Yeah,
But we look to have some further conversation as it relates to the individual in which you're talking about.
Yeah, I just would like to suggest, I don't believe that one additional member at this time will create the quorum by itself. Okay. And so I think if there are concerns with the individual, I would encourage council to take time and we can talk about it next week. But amending it on the floor to move forward with one individual will not create quorum, and I believe it would be pretty disrespectful to that individual without having any reasons given as to why it's being changed.
If there's someone here, I don't know from law, what is considered a quorum for the Housing Appeals Board? Do we even know?
I'm not entirely sure. I don't know exactly how many members we have. Madam President,
Councilwoman Amobian?
basically, I just so that we're all up to speed, how many members do we have on the Housing Appeals Board? And why are we having this crisis with so many vacancies?
They're going back to the transition back in October and November. I was told that there were several vacancies on the board, and then there were several inactive members on the board as well. And so we were asked to put forward some names. We put forward 2 names. I think we intend to bring more names forward. But I would ask that this legislation be treated as it is on its face, up or down. We can get the number that would create quorum currently, but I would ask that if there are concerns about an individual, we can talk about it. And if there are valid concerns, we can address that. But I think that changing it on the fly here is not helpful, nor is it respectful to the individual who was recommended by neighborhood assistance.
I don't think anyone has answered my question. How many are on the board? Why are we experiencing this crisis? Because you have the authority to hold people over until you replace folks, don't you?
Yes, I believe the issue is that there are several vacancies, and then there are several members who do not typically attend, who are basically inactive. And so I believe we have 2 to 3 members who could be considered active.
And the total number is what? 10, 11, 12, 5, 6, what?
There are currently only 6 actual city members on that board, without the
And then there's several of those members are inactive.
Councilman Fusco?
Yes, thank you. This in no means was it meant to disrespect anyone whatsoever. Our job here is to ensure that legislation is either passed or not, and it's the desire of this council. I would like for everyone to look at the legislation, whereas the amendment is removing a name, but it is appointing a new member, being John Valley, and also reappointing Michael Dauberton, Kathy Wilkins, and Leonetta Jones. And so it's reappointing those individuals. I was under the impression, I was told that this would, in fact, at least one name would seat that board. That's what I was told. So I know it's the desire of this council to ensure that this board is successful. And they do such great work. They do much of it on their own time, over and above just the meetings themselves. And so with that, like I said, I know there's somewhat of a sense of urgency, and we'd love to have further conversation referencing an individual. However, though, ensuring that we get the votes so we can get this board seated so that they can continue to do the good work of the city, we would request again that we suspend the rules and we move forward on the names that have been proposed, excluding the one. That's simple. Thank you.
Councilwoman Mobian?
It appears that we have two issues on the floor. The administration has recommended two people. For some reason, one person is being excluded. The council is suggesting that we renew some folks, and it sounds like you have, what, 5 names there? Is that what you have if you renew some? I'm talking, well, you're presenting the legislation. So you identified the names of the individuals that you're recommending that they be renewed. You're recommending a new person. So how many are you talking about there? Are you talking about 5 people?
John Valley would be 1. Reappointing Mr. Dauberton, Michael Dauberton would be 2. Kathy Wilkins would be 3. Leonetta Jones would be 4 altogether.
So that's even number. Usually you try to get an odd number on boards for whatever reason. So do you not want to address the issue that the mayor is talking about? They recommended 2 people. One person, for some reason, is being excluded. Do you not want to talk about that? It sounds like he wants to do it on the floor. Yeah. Is there a problem with doing that?
Well, in terms of, again, there needs to be a desire on this council to support the legislation as a whole. Okay, there's not that support. There is support, though, out of the 5 people, there is support for 4, not for 5. In terms of the actual individual itself, there's
so
council, this is the desire of council.
So the 5th person is not desirable because the committee has voted to not seat the person, or you don't want to bring it to the council?
It's up to each individual council member how they're going to vote in terms of their desire to support individuals that have been requested to be appointed. What we're saying at this time that there's not support on council for a certain individual. And we would be more than happy, as the president had mentioned, to have further conversation. But to seat this board, to seat the board is what we're trying to do here so that they can continue to do their work.
And if I can, Councilwoman, just to kind of clear things up just a little bit, to my understanding, it was 6 individuals who were seated. If we make this motion and vote tonight, we will be able to seat a 7th person, to my understanding, which would create a quorum. Now, we do understand there are some concerns with one individual that is being struck from this piece of legislation. And we are going to have conversation, and we'll make sure that all of council is included in the video clips and some of the concerns. But what we're saying is we need to move forward so that we can at least seat the board so that the board can conduct business.
So you're talking about 7 people? You're talking
That was my understanding, but I want to refer to law because it seems to be some confusion.
Well, so looking at the codified ordinances that govern the Housing Appeals Board, it's 10 members.
Could someone go to the mic?
Yeah.
I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you, Deb.
So under the codified ordinances, section 15004, which governs the Housing Appeals Board, it is a 10-member board. However,
Generally, what that means is that 5 of those members are typically seated to hold a meeting. And so when you have a 5-member group, a quorum is 3 members. And I think part of the problem was that we can't even get to the 5-member group because some of the members are inactive. So we're trying to achieve a more active membership so that we can get about the business of hearing those appeals.
So can we get a count of how many we actually have if in fact we seat John Valley tonight? I think that's what we want to know, right?
If you seat John Valley tonight, you will have a total of 7.
Okay,
And you reappoint the folks who have to be reappointed.
okay, thank you. Mayor?
Sure, so I want to be very clear. Nothing about amending this on the floor was discussed when we met with council leadership earlier today, and it's tremendously unusual to do this. I don't think that was done in my entire time as a council member the last 4 years. And so I would really advise folks to be careful in going down that path. So we put forward 2 names. Mr. Fusco, you read off, I think, 5 or 6 names just now. I have not seen a copy of that. I don't believe the administration has. Would you be willing to share a copy of that?
Yes, I would, in all respect, I'd like to ask the clerk to please read in the title clause of the legislation that I've asked council to consider with the amendment. Please read the legislation. Thank you.
Sure. With the amendments that Councilman Fusco mentioned, the new title clause would be a resolution approving and confirming the appointment of John Valley for staggered term beginning on February 15th, 2024, reappointing Michael Dobberton, Kathy Wilkins, and Lanita Jones on staggered terms to the City of Akron Housing Appeals Board and declaring an emergency.
It's a reappointment. Most of them are reappointments.
Yes, we were not in the process of reappointing those people because we were in the process of determining who was active and who was not.
I'm sorry, but the way I read the legislation, I'm not an attorney, but the way I read the legislation says that we are appointing, with considering the amendment, 1 individual and then reappointing 3 individuals on top of that, hence 4 people altogether. So there's a reappointment of those individuals. And it also, it goes on to, I believe, mention that the staggered terms for the appeals board. So if individuals have been serving on, they need to be reappointed, from what I understand. So that's why, and council, I know we want to see this move forward. We would like to see this board move forward so that they can meet and review the appeals. So with that.
Councilman Garrett?
Madam President, thank you for your time. If there was an agreement prior to coming to the floor, why are we changing that agreement? And then also, are we allowed to hear what's the reason that this person is being stricken from this? Why? What's the real reason? So we'd like to know that prior to actually voting on that, please.
If you want to share. And then the other thing that I do want to make very clear for the record, we did have a conversation with you, Mayor Malik, about the concerns of the board not being able to conduct business for at least a month or 2. And we did ask if we could remove that 1 name for now until we looked at some of the concerns, shared those concerns with council, and appoint John Valley just so that the board could have a quorum, they could meet, and they can conduct business, and you refused to do so. And so I think that is why this amendment is hitting the floor, just to be clear.
But let's be very clear, there was no amendment that was discussed today when we met for half an hour.
You made it very clear that you were not willing to remove a name. You were only willing to submit the piece, vote it up or down. But again, as a ward council people, the most calls that I receive are regarding blighted homes in our community. And the fact that this board has not met to address those issues is very concerning. And yes, we will have a conversation about this individual and the concerns, and all of that information will be shared with council.
Sure, I just have one final point. So the final point is that last Monday, I met with council leadership, and council leadership shared that there were concerns, and I asked what those concerns were. And I asked that some specifics be shared. And those were not shared. And so today in the meeting, I again asked if those could be shared. And around midday, they were shared, but no one brought up any kind of amendment. And the very first link that was shared as a concern included a public comment about abortion that I can't imagine what the concern would be. It was about how we need to protect the right to an abortion at a national level. There was no concern about it. And so if we're not willing to actually take some time and engage with concerns, we're striking a name off a list. And again, this person was not my suggestion. They were suggested by the Department of Neighborhood Assistance without even asking reasons. So if that's something this council wants to do, this council can. I just think that's a very significant step to take.
Councilman McKittrick?
Well, we have a motion. I have a question on the motion.
Yes. You have a question on the motion?
No.
We do,
The motion is there, yes.
we do have a motion, we do have a second, and again, the purpose of this, and I hate for this to be turned into something that it is not, because I don't think this is the time or place for any of that type of conversation, because it's not a personal attack about any individual, but when there are some concerns brought before council, we need to look into them, we need to discuss them, and we want to take our time to do so, but at the same time, we want to make sure that this board has what they need so that they can continue to do the city's business. That's what this piece is about, very simply put. We will bring this name back. We will share the video clips and concerns with all of council. We'll make sure the council clerk emails all those things to council, and we will have further conversations regarding this individual. But we are trying to move forward so that the board can meet. Yes, Councilwoman Amobian.
I guess, just for the record, I'm concerned that normally what happens, unless for some reason I am misspeaking, the legislation is drawn, we run it by our law department, they provide it, then it's presented to us. Then if something needs to change, you offer an amendment, and then you either bring that to council or you delay it for another week or whatever. I don't understand how we got from one piece of legislation, it sounds like, to whatever is being presented to us. Am I somehow missing something? Because this is pretty murky for me to follow.
Do you want me to explain it again?
I mean, someone else can take a.
I can explain it again, I suppose, just in that, again, made a motion for an amendment. The amendment removes the name from the legislation, and that's all it is. There's three areas in here that's affected by that. And what it does is it appoints a new person and 3 reappointments, meaning 4, hoping that's going to be able to get the work of this Housing Appeals Board moving, okay? That's just it. That's all it is. It's nothing more than that. We've also committed to continuing discussion.
Is there a new piece of legislation?
I'm sorry, pardon?
Is there a new piece of legislation?
No, this is under the old legislation, under the Housing and Neighborhood Assistance Committee, and I made a motion on the floor, which is not, we have not done that for some time, but I thought this is so easy and simple to understand in terms of just removing a name that it shouldn't be that difficult to have to go through the law department and have to go through all this. So therefore, the thing of it is that there's been concerns that have been brought up and levied to the leadership of council. So we just want to move on so that this group can do their business. And we don't want to wait another week or 2.
I apologize, but it's
okay.
not as easy and simple as you make it out to be. And I know that I am far from being dumb.
No, I'm not. I didn't say that.
I can't follow what you've done.
Yeah. It's just taking the name off. There's 5, now there's 4.
Councilman Gear, I want to give you an opportunity.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm sorry, I'm a member of that committee, and I haven't been brought up to speed on this. I would like to please ask for time on this so I'll be able to read up on it and get a better understanding of exactly what's happened. As a veteran, I fought for every single person in this country, and this young lady being just stricken without real cause that I'm not aware of, and I represent the city. And this hasn't been brought to me, so to have it just rush through, if possible, I'd like to call time on this, please.
So we already do have a motion on the floor, but again, I want to say, us making this move is so that this body can continue to meet. I don't know, I think they've missed 1, 2 meetings, too many meetings so far, okay? We will make sure the concerns, video clips, emails, whatever it is emailed out to everyone. I want to make that very clear, and we will continue the conversation on this. We have a motion and we have a second, okay? And that is to remove one name, and we're bringing forth John Valley and reappointing the names that are listed here in the legislation.
I'm sorry, just to be clear.
Yes.
Do we have a quorum on this committee if we add John Valley?
Technically, you
Because
would.
that's my biggest concern. is
Technically,
this-
yes, you would.
This committee is able to do their work.
That's right.
For the record, I'm not ready to vote up or down this other woman. I don't know
Right.
anything about her. I would like to talk to the folks in the housing department before we make a decision on her.
Absolutely.
I don't think we should be, I don't like the idea of, I don't know what the intentions are here, but I hope they're not to discredit her
No,
or to embarrass her. I want to get to know more about her first.
absolutely. And that's why we don't want to, and we want to be very careful about having these types of conversations in this way and in this manner, out of respect for her. But we do have a responsibility, and that is to make sure that the city's business continues on. So at this time, on the motion and the second, and that is to strike one name, to appoint John Valley, and to reappoint the names that are listed here, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
We're going to do a roll call.
Boys,
Aye.
Connor, Davis, DeShazier,
Aye.
Fusco,
Aye.
Garrett,
Nay.
Hannah,
Aye.
Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Amobian,
Nay.
Somerville.
Aye.
It passes 9-2.
Okay, thank you so much. We are going to continue with our agenda. That concludes our old business. We're now going to move in new legislation, beginning with budget and finance.
Item number 1 is offered by Lombardo. Ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee, without the formality of publicly advertising for bids, to enter into a contract or contracts with Guidehouse Incorporated for professional consulting services through the year 2027 and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Lombardo,
Consent, please.
this item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 2, offered by Fusco. Ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct additional parking at 2330 Smith Road and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco,
Refer.
this item will be referred.
Item number 3, offered by Fusco. Ordinance authorizing a conditional use to expand an auto salvage business at 1483 Triplet Boulevard and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco,
Refer.
this item will also be referred.
Item number 4, offered by Fusco. Ordinance authorizing a conditional use to place an off-premises high-rise sign at 1570 Frederick Boulevard and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco,
Consent agenda? No, I'm sorry. Refer.
this item will be referred.
Item number 5, offered by Fusco. Ordinance approving and confirming the appointment of Councilman Phil Lombardo to the Board of Directors for the Joint Economic Development Districts and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco,
Consent agenda?
this item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 6, offered by Fusco and Boys. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of publicly advertising for bids for the emergency demolition of 2324 Manchester Road and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco,
I'd like to defer to the ward council person.
Thank you. On June 18, 2018, I, like many members of my community, were thrilled to see the grand building on Manchester Road used once again for a vibrant church, which exactly is why it was built in the first place after years of neglect. What has happened over the past almost 6 years or so has been a danger to our community and frankly deplorable. Our ward has had its fair share of vacant buildings, large-scale vacant buildings. Even public places, including schools, have been left vacant. This was a problem for our neighbors in this residential neighborhood. I want to commend the administration for taking this bold step to defer to our neighborhood, to show our neighborhood that it's time to not leave another large-scale blighted vacant building in the middle of it, but to actually look at it as an asset. I look forward to working with them, making it a more developable, livable neighborhood for my neighbors and bringing vibrancy back. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, administration.
Thank you. Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended. Councilman Hannah?
Would
you please stand when you give your remarks too, just so you know?
I would just like to say that I applaud the demolition of the Word Church on Manchester Road. However, I'd like to know, how was this property chosen to be one of the first large buildings to be demolished? We have the same issue in Ward 5, the Goodrich Junior High building. The fire department has had numerous calls at this location, and squatters have made a home inside the building. The residents have complained numerous times to the city and even had Channel 19 come out and air their concerns on local TV. Do you have any idea when the Goodrich building will be demolished? Remember Goodrich.
Thank you, Councilman Hannah. Mayor Malik?
Thank you very much. Just want to respond to Councilman Hannah's point, which is well taken. There are lots of buildings across our city that are neglected and blighted and in need of demolition or reuse. The issue with the Word Church building, and this, for those who don't know, is the old Akron Baptist Temple building. There's actually 7 buildings. This is one of the largest blighted structures in our community. And it's so large that there's a concern about even the ability to secure it. We need to specifically have a group of police and fire that can go in at one time and secure it and then demolish it immediately. The other buildings that we're talking about, and Goodrich is a good example, are in need of demolition, but the scale of it is smaller, and also the degree of safety that it would pose to the neighbors if it would catch fire, or the inability even for us to determine who's inside is not as significant as this building. What we're trying to do is triage these buildings, and so this is not going to be the last time you hear from us in terms of demolition of a building. And actually, Goodrich we talked about today, and we had a good conversation with our planning department about some of the other structures across the community. Councilwoman Connor, when we were at your ward meeting last week, we talked about a number of those with you as well. So this is something you're going to be hearing a lot more from us in the months and years ahead. And certainly no neighborhood deserves to have buildings like this in it. So look forward to talking with you more about it, sir.
Thank you. Councilwoman Davis?
So who owns the property? Will the city take ownership, or does the Word Church?
So the property is owned by the Word Church. And so what we are doing is moving forward with the demolition, which has been ordered for well over a year now, I think close to 2 years now. We're moving forward with the demolition. We have applied to the state for demolition money, and every community in the state has to apply through your county land bank. And so we're waiting to hear back from that. We will likely hear this summer. But until then, we don't want to wait any longer with something that was brought to us really by our Department of Neighborhood Assistance and our safety forces as a public safety threat. As we move forward, though, regardless of whether we get that state funding, we are going to work on recovering funds from the Word Church, and we have been in communication with them about our intentions in regard to that.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This ordinance passes 11-0. Item number 7, offered by McKittrick, ordinance declaring the necessity of, determining to proceed with, and levying special assessments for the improvement of certain streets in the city by constructing, reconstructing, and repairing concrete sidewalks, driveway approaches, curbs, retaining walls, and installing roof drain pipes, all in accordance with petitions submitted by property owners under the 2021 citywide sidewalk program and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick,
Consent agenda, please.
this item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 8, offered by McKittrick, ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of advertising for bids with Montrose Ford LLC for the purchase of up to 5 Ford Explorers and 3 Ford F-250 trucks for use in the Water Distribution Division and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick,
Consent agenda, please.
this item will also be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 9, offered by McKittrick, resolution endorsing the Safe Routes to School district-wide school travel plan for the Akron Public School District and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick,
The wishes of the committee is to suspend the rules with a favorable report.
thank you. Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
This particular resolution will show support for the next ordinance that follows this. So asking for passage.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This resolution passes 11-0. Item number 10, offered by McKittrick, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to apply for and, if awarded, accept and expend funding from the Ohio Department of Transportation for the Safe Routes to School program and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick,
The committee's report is favorable. We're asking for suspension of the rules.
are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
What this is a grant that we will be able to obtain, and the grant will help with safety around our elementary schools for traffic and crossing of our children going to and from school. And we're asking for passage.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This ordinance passes 11-0. Item number 11, offered by McKittrick, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to apply for and, if awarded, enter into a grant agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation for the maintenance of various bridges in the city and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick,
Consent agenda, please.
this item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 12, offered by McKittrick, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into a contract or contracts after publicly advertising for bids for the replacement of concrete panels at the Akron-Fulton Airport and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick,
Also consent agenda, please.
this item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 13, offered by McKittrick, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee, after publicly advertising for bids, to enter into a contract or contracts to repair defective sidewalks and drive aprons throughout the city of Akron and to improve accessibility at city parks and community centers as part of its City Sidewalks 2024 project and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick,
The committee's report is favorable. We're asking for suspension of the rules.
are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
This is a 2024 sidewalk program, and we'd like to pass this so we can continue to improve the infrastructure of our sidewalks.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This ordinance passes 11-0. Item number 14, offered by McKittrick. Ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to apply for and if awarded, to accept and expend the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation Safety Intervention Grant for a trench box and equipment and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick?
Consent agenda, please.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 15, offered by McKittrick. Ordinance ratifying the actions of the Director of Public Service in contracting with H.M. Miller Construction Company for the emergency repair of a water main at Little Street and Yukon Avenue and authorizing payment therefor and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick?
Consent agenda, please.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 16, offered by McKittrick. Ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to apply for and if awarded, accept and expend the Flood Mitigation Assistance Program grant by FEMA to perform a planning study of the Lake Rockwell Reservoir and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick?
Consent agenda, please.
This item will also be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 17, offered by McKittrick. Ordinance determining to proceed with the improvement of Bellowwood Drive between the termini of Lafayette Drive and the northern terminus by paving, grading, constructing and reconstructing curbs, concrete sidewalks, and driveway approaches, and installing roof drain pipes and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick?
Also consent agenda.
Thank you. This item will also be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 17A is offered by McKittrick. Resolution declaring it necessary to improve Patterson Avenue between the termini of Winnipeg Street and 115 feet south of Boyle Street, Thornton Street between the termini of Dart Avenue and Grant Street, Inman Street between the termini of Wilbeth Road and Lovers Lane, Cole Avenue between the termini of Brown Street and Arlington Street, Allendale Avenue between the termini of Cooper Avenue and Wilbeth Road, and Brown Street between the termini of East Dresden Avenue and 10 feet north of Wayne Avenue by the repair of concrete pavement and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick?
Consent agenda.
This item will also be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 18, offered by McKittrick. Ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee, without the formality of publicly advertising for bids, to enter into a contract or contracts with Stannard and Associates for professional services relating to promotional testing for police sergeants and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick?
Consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 19, I have a substitute offered as an amendment, offered by McKittrick. Ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of advertising for bids with CDW Government for the purchase of up to 25 tablet computers and 25 printers for use in police cruisers and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick?
I'd like to poll the committee for a favorable report with suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Hannah?
Aye.
Lombardo? And Davis? The committee's report is favorable. We're asking for suspension of the rules and passage. These will provide new computers and printers to be able to outfit our new police cruisers that will be coming in.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This ordinance passes 11-0. Item number 20 is offered by McKittrick. Ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to file an application for and, if awarded, accept and expend grant funding from FEMA for the Assistance to Firefighter Grant and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick?
The committee's report is favorable, asking for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
This grant will provide monitors, cardiac monitors for our paramedics to be able to utilize, and we're asking for its passage.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This ordinance passes 11-0.
Okay. Thank you. That concludes our new legislation for this evening. We'll now move into committee assignments, rules. Councilman McKittrick.
2 p.m.
Public Safety, Councilman McKittrick.
2:15.
Budget and Finance, Councilman Lombardo.
3 p.m.
Parks and Recreation, Councilwoman Connor. Planning and Economic Development, Councilman Fusco.
1.
Housing and Neighborhood Assistance, Councilman Fusco.
3:30.
Public Service, Councilman McKittrick.
2 p.m.
Health and Social Services, Councilwoman Amobian.
2:30.
Public Utilities and Green Committee, Councilman McKittrick.
2 p.m.
Okay. thank you. Is there anything else coming before council at this time? Councilman McKittrick?
Thank you. I just wanted to recognize, I don't know if anybody caught this, but we had two of our, excuse me, our police officers respond to a shooting, which their quick actions helped to save a life. Officers Louis Pettit and Mike Raddick, they responded. The person had a gunshot wound to arm and leg, which they subsequently applied tourniquets to prevent the patient from bleeding out, and also put a chest seal on a wound in the chest. And the emergency room physicians credited these two officers with absolutely saving this person's life. And just very thankful for our officers, their training and their dedication. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Councilman, for sharing. Anything else coming before this body at this time? We have a motion on the floor. If there are no objections, meeting adjourned.
This concludes the live broadcast of Akron City Council. Margot Somerville, President of Council, presiding.